It's probably no surprise to anyone that Geometry Dash is a very buggy game. Whether it is through playing the game, creating using the editor, the functionality of menu features, or a corrupt save file, most users in the game can relate to having been exposed to bugs at least once. Before 2.2 had even begun in development, the 2.1 update was the biggest update the game ever received on 16th of January 2017. But it became clear that the update had not received proper quality assessment. A couple of immediate problems that were found was that the high detail mode for the game was unfinished at the time, forcing everyone to play at medium graphics settings. Another popular problem was the animation sprite for the spider very often misaligned, both in the menu and in game. Most of these problems were fixed pretty quickly though in future updates, now leaving the game at update 2.113 as we speak. But it doesn't end there. RobTop went way overboard with adding so many features to the game that bugs were pretty much imminent. And oh dear, he never bothered fixing most of the bugs. And there are so many of them. Despite this, are the bugs that are going to be mentioned in this video all of them? Definitely not. There are even more that haven't been listed either because it has not been found, or it is literally impossible to explain how it works. So, buckle up and allow me to demonstrate the buggy mess that is the 2.113 update of Geometry Dash. Let us begin with some gameplay bugs, shall we? Some level completions in their stars are reset when restarting the game. During duels, one of the icons sometimes turn invisible, making the section potentially impossible. Two-player mode is completely broken, turning any regular transition into reverse gravity. The game is not programmed to deal with higher frame rates, so the game works differently on different monitors. Jump pads in some scenarios simply refuse to work. Hitting a dash or really fast during a practice reset will turn all your icons completely white. When flipping with the spider, the rotation of the sprite does not update properly in certain situations. An upside down ball can be pushed inside the ground. Same with the ship, UFO, and spider. Higher hertz make icons on vertically moving platforms randomly jump for no reason. Practice mode does not account for being airborne with any non-flying game mode, which can be abused in some instances. Also, practice mode does not properly save the physics of the icon, making parts possibly break if checkpoints are placed in the air. Breakable blocks are impossible to break in a level after a practice run without exiting the level. This same bug also makes any block above you act as if they have an H block on them, as well as allowing you to stick to them until you let go. Also, having a cube get pushed into breakable blocks after the same procedure with a pad will make the cube get stuck flying in the air locked onto the breakable blocks. The robot game mode is able to straight fly if put inside a 1-block gap with a pad reversing its gravity. When a ship glides on top of a slope, the ship will stick to that slope like glue since the game doesn't account for the angular surface. Same goes for when a wave glides on top of an upside down slope with D-blocks. In certain circumstances, hitting orbs next to specifically placed slopes allows you to clip through them. Hitboxes in this game are a complete f***ing joke. When using a jump pad on a moving platform, it is possible to jump mid-air or change gravity mid-air with the ball and spider. Sometimes the chests and missions say 13 days until you can open them again. Enter a deactivate dual transition on the same frame of death will leave a cube floating at the dual transition. Entering a dual transition on completion of level will leave a cube floating at the dual transition infinitely. Attempting to jump upwards a pad with a spider coming from slope seems to make the pad not working. A duel's icons is affected by the position of the camera and not the range of the duel portal, making some duel setups possible in the editor and some impossible in game. If you alt-tab while loading a level, your icon will freeze in place and no music plays, but animations and effects will carry on as normal. If you tab out of the game while loading a level, there's a chance the song will play before the level starts, regardless of a set preset. When playing the challenge, going back to the vault will play the regular menu loop music instead of the vault music. When you start a level with music turned off, start practice mode and then turn the music back on, the practice song will not play. Getting new records on a recently uploaded level will not save when you quit the game. Normal and reverse gravity has a different height, therefore some scenarios has to be approached differently. How do you screw that up? Top list on update. When selecting a map pack, it will have the next or previous page option even though it will always display the same page. If you get a new record or rewards on a level, hit retry and die before the rewards get collected, the next attempt restart speed will be almost instant. Hitting a specific slope while there is a jump pad behind it make a wave's trail not disappear after you die. Percentages can potentially go slightly backwards when entering a mirror portal. Going all the way to the end of a list of levels, the last number of the list is 0 of 0. If you go into the uncompleted level tab, complete the level and refresh, the number of levels will not update correctly. At random times, a duel's icons flip for no apparent reason. The ship can clip into a block and not die. However, let them continue clipping into the block and the ship will eventually die. Same with the UFO, except with the UFO you clip into the block and stay in its poor hitbox perpetually. Place a checkpoint right before a speed portal, you skip through and it won't register. Putting the wave through certain situations will make its trail glitch from top to bottom of the screen for 1 frame. If you fall onto an orb and hit it as opposed to jumping into it, the trail doesn't disappear and remains there until you jump. If you tap while slightly underneath a ramp, you will gain the full momentum of the ramp as if you went up the entire slope without even reaching its top, allowing for some impossible situations to work. In normal instances, not jumping kills you on an upward ramp with a spike directly above, as with jumping because it gives you more momentum. However, jumping at just the right place causes the cube to jump onto the normally scaled ramp instead of going upwards. Some levels abuse this, but if you hold while hitting a blue pad with a block on top of it upside down, you will get an invisible platform by clipping slightly into the block above it. If you enable the flip 2P mode controls in your settings and play a 2P mode level, the controls for the spacebar and mouse is disabled. Only up arrow works. Disabling the setting will make the up arrow not work though. In some situations, a player can appear in the leaderboards twice. Breakable blocks does not save properly during practice mode, as they reappear if you die even if you manage to break them before you die. Some of the ground spikes doesn't work with certain game modes. If you beat a level that used to be rated, keep it in your saved levels folder, then save and load your account, you will get the stats that you would originally get from the level when it was still rated. Sometimes the test mode text suggesting you're using start position doesn't show up. If you die with auto retry off, press the retry button before you respawn, the retry screen will appear with the level still running. If you finish a practice run of a level, then hit retry to play the level normally, you will have a huge lag spike in your first attempt. If you hold down on a dash orb as the cube, go through a robot portal and then let go of the dash orb, your cube will be smaller. If you hold down a dash orb through a big cluster of game mode portals, the rotation will be stuck in midair. This bug will vary dependent on the spacing of the portal cluster. In the spider game mode, 3 different types of buzzsaws can be used as platforms if scaled down. Some levels have verified corners while not being rated. The player can clip between 2 slopes that are 1 block apart. If you are in a duel and enter a wave game mode portal and a duel and deactivation portal at the same time, the second icon will remain on the screen stuck with a horizontal trail behind it. If any object follows the player in the x-axis, in practice mode the movement resets itself when dying. Shake triggers deactivate if you die during one in practice mode. In a bounded game mode, only the bottom ground shakes. The top one is still. If you place a checkpoint while sliding with the wave on top of slopes with D-blocks and get killed, the wave will start dying on the platforms despite the D-blocks that should stop it from happening. The cube continues to jump with no inputs after going from a 2-player duel to a single-player part. Daily, and probably also weekly, will sometimes not be aligned with the center of the game. The cause of this is unknown. If a checkpoint is placed on top of a portal, changing the duel's camera slightly at just the right time, the camera will be stuck in the wrong position, turning the part theoretically impossible. If you aim with the wave just right, given the appropriate circumstances, the player can get stuck on the slope when entering a UFO transition with the wave. Placing a wave portal in the middle of a wave section causes a trail to appear out of nowhere that remains even after the next attempt. If the game skips frames far enough, it could potentially skip rendering parts of a level entirely. In the dual ship mode, arranged at a setup where they are together in a 1-block gap, a shake trigger value of 7 or higher will kill the player. Seriously, Rob? A goddamn screen shake? If music volume is set to a low value when a new attempt starts, pulsing objects will become huge and a short, loud noise will play for a moment. After restarting an attempt in practice mode, orbs can be pressed again, which allows you to do certain things that would be normally impossible. Pressing a dash orb immediately when a new attempt starts makes the icon white until the action is done again. Dying at 53 or 59 rewards 1 more or 1 less orb. The end level barrier doesn't hinder the icon being affected by other objects, which causes some weirdness. If you place a slope rotated downwards with a D block, have the wave glide into it with a move trigger pushing it along simultaneously, a very fun visual glitch occurs. If you play a level that has a custom song stopping midway through the level, pausing and unpausing it will cause the song to incorrectly restart. When a cube jumps on blocks that rise vertically, any other icon in the level gets exactly 1.0 taken away from their X position on the frame the player jumped. If you press the left mouse button to jump and then try to press spacebar too quickly, the jump with the spacebar cancels out and doesn't happen at all, which can be maddening to experience. If you died in some levels at approximately 85% or later the previous attempt, the gravity of entering game modes will flip. Somehow. If you are in practice mode and set a checkpoint after a monster affected by an animate trigger, if you respawn at that checkpoint, the animation will be default. When using an object moving the wave up, you can go through the top boundary of the game mode. If you do a specific setup like in the video, you are able to no-clip through one block. This is only one of few versions of this bug where you can change block or spike hitbox by passing the level in practice mode. Placing a gravity portal in half block in this manner allows you to clip through the half block in which would otherwise be impossible. Upon exiting practice mode, if you pause immediately then unpause, the level will be silent until you die or pause and unpause again. You know, I don't even know what to say about this one. Let's showcase some visual bugs, shall we? The same UFO as above in the icon selection preview is colored incorrectly. One of the spiders has an incorrect trail. Many of the window borders in menus and interfaces are not aligned correctly. This edit trigger has subtract misspelled to subtract. Only your spider will run across the screen in the menu and no other type will. Grabbing a copyable of a long level does not give you the correct information until you load the level in the editor. In the UFO game mode, hitting a red pad will give the wrong impact color. It will be purple instead of red. Raptor can't spell triple. When a level has the copy feature enabled, it sometimes shows a password lock while being an open copyable. When downloading a random song, start a download of a second song while the first is still downloading. The second download will cancel without the message stating so, but the download bar will still be there. Changing a level's font while the text box is selected still allows you to interact with the text, but without it changing to green. When rotating an object in the editor with ground enabled, the rotate interface will be layered behind the ground. When selecting a counter trigger, trying to delete that specific object showcases an entirely different trigger. Same thing happens with the start position object, except it showcases something else instead. Time for the editor. When certain icons enter a dual deactivation portal in editor playtest mode, they can leave behind an outline of one of the icons at the exact point it enters the portal, staying in place. Due to the game sometimes failing to encode the levels in your creation tab properly, it can corrupt your save file and make the game impossible to start. If there have been moments where you cannot start the game from Steam, it is very likely that this bug has happened to you. Triggers activate twice when respawning on the same exact X position as a trigger. Some objects does not have a correctly set up layer and some objects share different layer properties comparing blending and non-blending objects. Playtest in the editor can sometimes remove blending of colors in preview mode, making it impossible to playtest without having to put color triggers after your start position. Rotation in the game is not mathematically accurate, therefore angles such as 22.5 degrees can never be achieved, since the editor can only do approximately 0.7 at its smallest step. If there is a lot of objects on the screen, playing in editor mode will cause a huge lag spike and most likely kill you before you get a chance to do anything. Moving game mode portals, except cube, on the y-axis with a move trigger, it will teleport the player to the origin upon entering. Stacking a bunch of slopes will create an instant elevation with a cube game mode, almost like a teleport. The same thing happens with the wave game mode with a D block lock onto it. Stacking a bunch of half blocks in a specific way will create an instant elevation. Effect lines sometimes disappear completely. Sometimes when updating a level, it will say upload failed. Only solution to this is to make a new copyable and try again. The so-called no-clip barrier, while a useful creation, is technically abusing a bug. When linking two objects, then selecting one of them by selecting all objects of that type, the link persists but the object isn't there anymore. If you move it around, then your game will either crash or the object plops in again. If you leave the level, it goes back to normal. Having an object locked onto the cube or robot and then make specific jumps will have the locked object move off center. When placing a text object in a level, removing the object, changing the font and press undo will give you bugged text textures. If you go into the editor, hide the UI and hit playtest in the editor, pressing the 1, 2 or 3 key will bring up the build, edit or delete interface while playing. Zooming in or out while keeping the scale slider activated, the scale slider will scale unintentionally. Placing a slope underneath a slope will cause the player to bounce really high. It is impossible to scale an object to the size of 0.98, 0.99, 1.01 and 1.02. It is also impossible to set the same values for the opacity for a color. Stopping a loop that is counting down to 0 with pickup and is set to stop it all when the item ID count is 0 will crash the game. Selecting multiple objects and attempting to scale them all at once will misalign their positions entirely. Black slopes have their object color only turn black if they are on screen when it happens. If they are off screen and color slowly changes, it will not update when they appear on screen. Robot can glide under half blocks with hit squares. Sometimes when opening the editor and wanting to select a font, the first font is a random font that is not correct. Deleting levels in the Create tab, then saving your account might result in some of your deleted levels to come back anyway. Any object set locked to X on a static will begin shifting to the left or right through a period of time, which varies between FPS. If you run at a solid 60 frames per second, you may notice more right movements, for example. An object at a very high speed rotating and stopped by a stop trigger will stop at different degrees. This is affected by your FPS. When you hit the ground while hitting and holding a green orb, for a short time the cube's hitbox does not exist, but makes you clip through game mode portals. In some random cases, placing a start position before a start position further ahead in the level will cancel the existence of the start pass furthest ahead. Layering on game mode portals doesn't work. Some objects are impossible to change the object color for. An object cannot have layer 0 as a secondary layer. The game registers it as non-existent. Selecting 2 or more objects in EL0 will show the Go to Layer button as unusable, despite being completely functional. Selecting multiple collision blocks at once are impossible to edit, even if there is only one identical setting with them. Selecting multiple orbs to tick multi-activate does not work, even if there is only one identical setting. With a rotate trigger and center point setup, the objects to rotate around the center will only move and not rotate until the level is saved and reopened. Simply duplicating a rotate trigger will not change the amount of rotation on the objects, it will always rotate the same. However, copying them and moving them out of the stacked rotation triggers will make it work. A masked orb in some cases will have its orbs change priority based on attempts. If you place a start position near the end of a level, beat the level and hit replay, the game will scroll through the entire level to try and repeat the same process. Certain portals, such as the yellow gravity portal and the teleportation portal, does not change hitboxes based on their rotation in the editor. Copying objects that are part of a spawn loop with toggle triggers show all objects being toggled on until the pause menu is opened. Sometimes when playtesting with start pause, spawn loops will break for no reason. Selecting more than one object automatically enables the edit special button, though it does not do anything in some cases, making it useless. If you press and hold with the swipe function enabled, then press enter, the game will play in the editor and keep the swipe box stuck on the screen until you exit the editor. When you are clicking on an object without having one selected, the editor usually switches to that object and selects it for you. This function does not work with certain objects. Ticking the box Allow Multi-Activate on a yellow orb does not save when trying to create an exact replica with the orb selected in the editor. The rotate trigger is a broken pile of garbage, and there are probably so many bugs related to this thing that they would be impossible to count. But since I cannot prove that these bugs exist, I'm going to be generous and say that the trigger has 10 of them. If you go in your saved songs folder, press the More button, exit and change to next page, it is impossible to scroll through the songs properly. If 2 or more objects share editor layer 2 but different layer 1, selecting all objects at the same time will result in their layers displayed as -10,001. If you place a red pad rotated 90 degrees above a slope, remove the slope and place a new one underneath, the pad stops working. Rotating a dynamic collision block does not rotate the hitbox of it, so doing it is pointless. If you rotate triggers around a point with duration lines turned on, their duration line is visually glitched, but doesn't affect the actual effect. Cube rotation affected by the angle they fall off the slope results in the cube rotating the opposite direction by unknown means. Setting up a custom delete filter with any object aside from a speed portal, leaving and re-entering editor mode and then attempting to place a speed portal crashes the game. If you set up 2 touch triggers and 1 toggle trigger with the following settings, either the spacebar, up arrow key or the mouse will not work anymore for jumping. If you have Show Object Info enabled and select the Rotate button, the game will only display object info on blocks that can only be rotated 90 degrees. The game does not let you move a speed portal on the x-axis with a move trigger. This can be bypassed however with a rotate trigger, which is even used in the level F Nostalgious by JF. If you copy an object deep into an XL level, there's a small chance random objects can misalign by 1/60th of a block. When exiting and entering a level over 4096 blocks in length in the editor, objects aligned to the half grid past the 4096 block distance in the editor may misalign by 1/60th of a block. If you stack a big number of pads and try to delete them using the swipe option, a weird graphical bug can occur. Move trigger with move player X enabled works properly only until its effect hasn't ended or from start pause on attempt 1, otherwise it uses the value from the move X field. When you put a start pause at the dual part, it gives different physics to the orbs, but when you put start pause way more back at the cube dual, the ball dual becomes possible. Sometimes when entering the editor and trying to edit objects, they have spontaneously duplicated several times. Now time for a little bit of miscellaneous. Editor and in-game physics are not identical. When logging onto a different account and relogging to yours, there's a pretty good chance that it will duplicate levels you had saved or transfer levels from one of the accounts to the other. The game skips frames constantly and has screen tearing issues everywhere. Even if a button is overlapped by an interface, you'll still be able to press button until it's completely off frame. Attempting to add certain accounts to your friends list, the game denies you doing this sometimes. If you attempt to search for a username that is not the exact name, you will not get any results at all. This is a bug because it used to demonstrate names similar to the search query, but now it shows nothing. Same thing happens when searching for level names. If you have parental controls enabled and press the information button on any level, the information icon will be locked from being pressed, as do the 4 other icons next to it for some reason. Some users are not whitelisted properly, therefore some users cannot access your unlisted levels even if they are added in your friends list. Using specific AMD hardware, there's a small chance that the game's font will turn black, the screen can turn black, the game crashes, or alternatively, the game becomes unplayable with a screen like this. Attempting to delete a comment on a deleted level is impossible. When you press the reload button on the page of all comments section, if your username does not start with a capitalized letter, the game will add it in for you for no reason. Reloading at your account after this, the same thing will happen. Some levels with no coins show up even when filtering the search for levels with coins. If a comment is left on an unlisted level, players can enter your comment history if it's public and click the ID button to access the level, even if the player is not on the creator's friends list. If you message someone the max amount of title characters, then have them attempt to message you back. This automated input gets added and exploits the character limit for the message title. Unfollowing a followed account or going into an account actively that is not followed will have those accounts potentially appear in your follow list. When already having the maximum number of shards of any type and transferring data from mobile to PC, if you attempt to open a chest which contains a shard of same type, you will have more than the maximum 100 shards of that type. When using the Reason tab, it is possible to find the same level recurring twice and appearing again later further down the list of Reason levels. Tutorial window can be opened infinitely, even with the tutorial window already up. Having 2 levels named the same name will have the game say it's a repeated name. However, removing the identical name from one of the copies will not remove the repeated name identification. If you select a demon rating, clear the search filters, then press the demon rating that you selected, it will show the incorrect demon rating. If you rate the demon difficulty of a rated demon, go back into the level and exit, you can re-rate the level again. If you download a level with a specific name, go back to the search level page and search a level with an identical name will put the scroll page in the wrong section. Even with hacks, it is impossible playing or copying certain levels online. Once you reach a maximum of 100 follow users, the game won't let you follow anymore, even if you unfollow enough accounts. An extension to this bug is that using multiple devices, it is possible to have more than 100 creators followed. If you enter an account user page, press all their levels, go into the comments of one of their levels, press another user and repeat the same steps, exiting out of the second user's level will immediately go back to the first user's page. Based on the number of copyables created in a row, pressing escape the same number of times will reload the exact same page over and over again. Until only the escape button have been pressed one more time than the number of copyables made will the game go back to the level search page. Some accounts are impossible to load. Some locked icons do not give the proper information on how to unlock them. Technically speaking, this is not a game bug, but rather an unintended feature. If you load an account, whether it belongs to you or not, on the Steam version, if the user has completed all the achievements, you will potentially obtain all 120 achievements on Steam. In barely any playtime at all, you will have beaten the game. And yes, it doesn't matter that RopeTrap doesn't care about the Steam achievements. Getting 120 achievements in 5 minutes is not normal. Once completing a quest, there's a chance once exiting a level quickly, the quest notification will not disappear and stay on screen. If you play in full screen and it's in the menu, tab out of the game and quickly get back into the game, there's a small chance that the music volume increases or that the menu song stacks. Placing a block and moving it up toward the player while paused in the editor will result in the player getting launched upwards. Even when beating rated levels in the latest version of the game, there's a small chance that it will count as a level completed, but not for the leaderboards. Going off tab while on a page on the saved levels has a very small chance to displace you to what is a seemingly random page. For no reason at all, some objects change color while in practice mode and respawn after death. Some players have their game bugged so that it is impossible for them to open all the key chests in game. When you save a level whose name is fully made out of spaces and reopen the game twice, its name will convert to unknown. Some levels in game has had their level version and song changed to Zero and Stereo Madness. When you are going through the different leaderboards and click on the creator leaderboard, as soon as the one you first clicked on finishes loading, you will stay in that one and the creator leaderboard is unavailable to click on. If you check someone's comments while the filter is reasoned, then open the level they commented on and change the filter to most light, then you go back to their comment history and it will now change to most light. If you enable the demon setting for when searching levels, then press the magic tab, the ability to scroll and the magic tab disappears. Some levels online are displayed with the wrong length. Pressing escape and spacebar at the same time on the retry or leave option takes you back to the main screen with no music playing or being able to enter the level again. If you search levels as a song that's fairly unused, there's a small chance that scrolling through levels will make the number of levels on each page be entirely randomized. The heart feature is backwards, in which levels you hearted don't appear under saved hearted levels and vice versa. If you want to view a comment filtered as spam, trying to press the name doesn't work. If you scroll to the next or previous page and go back, the name will be clickable again. When sending messages to accounts, using the remove button doesn't delete the message sent for the other person. The icon of suggest demon rating button is different in low, medium and high graphics. Orbs from chests are not added to the total orbs count in statistics until you reload the game. Opening your profile, then your comments, then the level any comment refers to, then exiting the level and then pressing escape again exits both comments and profile at the same time. Pressing spacebar when pressing view for a downloaded level before the menu screen is fully loaded, the cursor gets hidden and disables the play button and keyboard. This solves the game completely. If you load your account page, go and download any custom song, then load your accounts as comments while the download is processing, the comment history will never load once you press a different page. Configuring a caller ID with these settings will showcase different results on mobile and PC. If you have a folder selection on your account and then log out, the folder setup still remains in the game. If you have a weekly demon, skip it and quickly close the interface before it finishes, click the weekly demon icon again, and the demon you discarded will be stuck. Trying to delete it again will make the delete icon disappear and you can't do anything. Exit and enter the weekly demon again and the next weekly demon will show up. If you use controller to play GD and use the joysticks in the editor, you have full control of moving the level even when you shouldn't. If you use arrow keys in the menu and press spacebar twice, there's a possibility you'll mess up the order of main levels listed. If you move the window to the left or right side of the screen, open and close the menus and the main menu will be centered. Grab the window and release it from the side of your screen, you can see the ground appearing on the bottom right screen. In a menu, it will look like this. Rarely, when you open a chest, the number of ores and diamonds shown during the animation does not match the actual number in the top right corner. If you search a name and go to comment history, click on the ID of a level and copy it, open the level in the editor and start an attempt, then exit the level and go to the quests, you cannot collect any complete rewards. You can have an account added while still having a friend request from that same account. If you load recent comments and click on the ID of any level, spend a good amount of time in the level, approximately 25 minutes, exit the level and go back to the comment section and load the next page, it will load the most liked comments but in the recent tab. If you load or delete a level from your saved list where the creator changed his name, load the profile and his level list, go back to the level and play it, the game crashes. This is a very long bug to explain, so I'm just going to give you a step guide. 1. Go to your comment history, works with recent and top comments. 2. Click on an ID and download the level. 3. Go to a random user and load his comment history. 4. Click on an ID, download the level and play it. 5. Exit the level and delete. 6. Click escape until you're on the level you downloaded first. 7. Delete the level and press escape to your comment history. 8. Now you can scroll. Click on IDs, you can delete comments, switch to recent comments, and minimize the comment size. Even mobile has some of its exclusive bugs. Sometimes when you open the editor, click swipe and slide on the screen without any object selected, it will place the orange teleportation portals without the blue ones. Once they're placed, they cannot be deleted. If you click the X button and like comment at the same time, then the like or dislike option pop-up will come up without being in the comments section. Liking or disliking crashes the game. Simply exiting works fine though. The same bug happens when you attempt to delete a comment from your own page. You can open multiple windows at once, for example pressing the account info and account stats button at the same time, or bring up both stacked on top of each other. This also happens if using a controller mapped to a button and mouse on PC. A spawn loop will stop when game is paused on mobile at certain speeds. When initializing triggers using a spawn trigger at the start, 16 units to the left of the start of the editor grid, it does not activate and makes the level potentially impossible. When in the editor on mobile, there is a chance with some effects that they are colored incorrectly while playing after adding objects near the colored trigger line. If you program an instant count trigger, it will show the correct display, which is the item ID, but after copying, it changes to the target ID. Some rated levels on mobile are unplayable. Literally. Timing with sloped ground spikes and an orb at the same time will freeze the cube in place. If you tab out of the game while paused in a level, press the game again and exit the level quickly, there's a chance the interface fails to load in the level menu. There's also a chance doing the same thing as above will crash the game. When selecting a specific custom object, the game won't always properly prioritize such object, resulting in multiple clicks that do nothing. If a level is paused and you try to restart it and pause at the same time, all the level's color channels will be set to white until the pause menu is closed. If you tab out of the game to any other link, like when opening Twitter through the game, then quickly trying to enter back in, interfaces have potential to not load properly. Sometimes when pausing the editor as you're playing in ship mode, unpausing it has a chance of your ship being stuck, thinking the player is still holding the screen. When making passwords for accounts, PC has the ability to use parentheses or dashes while mobile is not able to, meaning if you make a new password on PC using parentheses or dashes, you can't refresh the login on mobile and you will need a new password. Due to an issue with in-game audio for mobile, the wave shell can appear broken and much larger than it should be. Too many objects being selected at once, then copy-pasting them make a visual bug where it looks like 80% of what's selected disappears in preview mode, but going back to normal mode fixes it. When you play on mobile and hold the pause button before you reach the ending and keep holding until the completed screen comes up, the button is still big. It turns back to normal when you click it on a new attempt. For mobile users, the move trigger values can only be set with the x.x value, contrary to PC users that set it to x.xx. Alpha triggers that are set to 0.0 with a slider, the value of the slider can be inaccurate to place delicately, hence the game is lying to you. If you scroll up and hold with one finger on an interface such as save levels, your comments and profile, tap anywhere else on the screen with a second finger and the interface will remain locked in place until the screen is touched again. This is exclusive to Android, but for some reason, if you edit the text object to say 824253, the game will replace the text with BR-. You thought that was it, didn't you? Nope. Quickfire round. In 4:3 aspect ratio, there are too many editor tabs. In some instances, a wave's trail can clip like this. If you enter the menu of a daily level that was already completed after claiming the reward, the collection animation disappears before it finishes. If you have the final key for the Dungeon Keeper, if you press the keyhole and the escape button at the same time, the cutscene will not play and you have officially stopped the game and the Demon Gauntlet is inaccessible. If you complete a quest before the quest page is refreshed, you'll be able to stack an extra quest. Sometimes clicking on a creator's name on the weekly demon or daily level page will cause them to have no name and no levels. If you get a coin in the level, if you press retry and try to get the same coin again, it will appear as if you haven't gotten the coin in the animation. In windowed mode, if you enter a level then move the window to snap onto the side of the screen, the camera perspective for a game mode gets either bigger or blocked off. If you're playing a main level, attempt to leave the level and press an arrow key fast enough, you'll be unable to play that particular level until you click on another one. Spamming mirror portals will eventually have sprites flip horizontally. In slow speeds, dual ships in one block spaces will get out of sync if you hold. Placing a teleportation portal in the ship above the limits of the game mode will cause it to clip above the limits of the screen if blocks are put above it. The ships will pop into frame once there are no blocks below it. Spamming orb objects up to the object limit, the game will understandably lag. However, if a cube is falling onto a platform, the rotation will behave very strangely. If you spam too many orbs close to each other, some of the orb particles will fail to render. This is very rare today, but it is still possible for the eyes and spider sprites to misalign with each other. If you press to play the challenge and then quickly press on the door below, it will play the dungeon music in the level. If you press the play button on a level and immediately press the back arrow, the cursor will be invisible and tabbing out of the game will play the level's song. If you place a teleportation portal very high up and place a game mode portal with boundaries next to it, the end wall is not displayed up there and the icon will tend to go back down to where the wall is. If you pause the game mid-jump and go back into the game, the first click will not register. If you spam the practice mode button and the escape button at the same time, sometimes the menu will begin playing the practice song music. In the dual ball game mode in the editor, repeatedly pressing start and stop will cause the second ball to stop rotating properly in its movement. By spamming the right arrow key, left mouse and spacebar in the main level selection page, you can end up entering a level where you cannot jump and the level will stop rendering correctly after the first attempt. Pressing escape will crash the game. This is more of an oversight, but pressing retry immediately upon starting a first attempt on a level, the icon will be stuck in place for a short moment in the second attempt. This is because the first attempt has a waiting interval that is not affected by the retry button. If you hold a dash with the ship, then let go, your trail will no longer render. With ignore damage, stacking any slopes backwards against the icon will cause it to teleport up regardless of the game mode's potential boundary. If you're playing a level with fade into the music, if you pause right as the level starts, the fade in won't exist. In practice mode, a number of different factors can contribute to the checkpoint sprites to become twice as big or disappear entirely. Sometimes when pressing a daily or weekly level, the level's information can be set as unknown until you load the level itself. At seemingly random times, a quest's rewards can be unobtainable even if you completed it. When putting an object in the editor through a series of events, such as deleting the object, undo movement, or delete it, there is a chance that the object cannot be selected anymore. The only way it will potentially work is if you cover the object in a large swipe box. This is fixed by exiting and re-entering the editor. If you've already clicked on the daily level and the level gets an update, it cannot be updated on the daily level menu. Sometimes from what I assume comes from a save file bug, you might end up with a level having the record of 100% instead of the complete icon. Originating from a save file bug, you can end up having a level completed but with no attempts, jumps, or hints of actually having played the level at all. Somehow, it is possible to have your icon become invisible with just the outline remaining. Very rarely, you can have the slope or something push an icon inside the half blocks. The hitboxes for all game modes have potentially different hitboxes when in dual mode, leading to icons being able to pass certain gaps in dual but not in normal mode, which makes for incredibly inconsistent game behavior. In some specific instances, the spider's animation will not start. Using the copy to clipboard feature doesn't work. For some players, their chest cannot be opened as if they have lost internet connection, but the timer for the chest also resets. And finally, if you spam the spacebar and escape button as soon as you enter a level, there's a chance that a level's song will be playing in the menu. The start position of the song is also influenced by playing on a copyable with the start position in the level. There are a couple of bugs that I still have on my list, but I am not allowed to mention them. And there's a very good reason for that. The amount of damage that some of these bugs can cause are way too dangerous to actually present publicly. And for that reason, I'm gonna say that, trust me on this one, I do have more bugs, but I really should not mention them publicly. And with that said, we have now reached the end of the video. This is now me speaking genuinely without a script of any kind. This is just me speaking my mind. This video destroyed me. The amount of time I spent talking to a big number of people who were able to give me a lot of these bugs, this wouldn't have been possible if I didn't speak to them. This took about 8 months or something like that. I began working on this ever since I released the most disliked levels video, and I was back in early 2020. With all this said too, given how RobTop said that 2.2 is going to be the buggiest update so far, having researched into how many bugs are in this update, I'm just not looking forward to what 2.2 is going to bring. Having discovered how buggy this 2D version of Fallout 76 is, I'm just not excited, to say the least. And with that said, if you have watched the entire video, thank you very much for watching. I appreciate all the support you give me, and I always will. and I will see you all in the next video. Thanks for listening.